house, I would say a member of the house, Fran Carvajal, friend, hermano, one of my biggest mentor actually, and Dero. Yeah, present yourself to each other, like tell the story.
Well, um, how did we start, Frank? What was
Oh yeah, yeah. So he was saying about Eduardo was saying about your life and music and
Changing
how
the guns for the guitars,
oh
did you say gangs or guns?
guns,
Oh,
guns?
guns. Okay, from guns to
pistolas.
guitars.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely. I was involved in some gang activity when I was a young kid, but I shed that pretty quick.
right.
That's kind of why I went. Well, not why I went in the military, but that was kind of I thought to clean up my act and get out of town. Um, but yeah, going back to what we were saying, I get about that. I had entered this life of hypervigilance and didn't know that. And I had
Mhm.
started at the Marine Corps at 18. And as I got older, continued carrying a gun and was so, in the end, very unhealthy and just had all this stress. And then when COVID turned, I had lost my vision there at the end of 2019. I was in these 24/7 migraines for over a year. And so at that point, really was sort of analyzing, what was important to me and realized or quickly learned that I was carrying tension with me every time I left with a weapon on me. And it wasn't like destruction I was seeking or wanting to cause destruction. It was this policing role that I was never asked to do. I sort of assumed for some reason. And Eduardo and I talk a lot about defeating the bully. And, do you remember in the 80s, they had the guys that ran the subways in New York,
Oh,
the
the Guardian
angels, the
Angels.
guardian angels.
Yeah.
So in Seattle, when I was in high school, this young man was murdered for being assumed to be gay. I don't know if he ever was, but it was from one high school to the next. And a couple of the boys were prosecuted from a neighboring high school in Seattle. And,
Yeah.
at that point, I had become really close friends with two young ladies, and their father had died of AIDS. And that was the first time I'd learned how to be empathetic towards the homosexual community. And like, I was never anti or anything. I just sort of, I wouldn't have stuck up for it or anything. But that was a turning point in me. And so I was doing some of that stuff. Um, and
Right.
there was a Q patrol is what they called it, and they were similar to the guardian angels, and we were literally go training at the park, combat style, and then we'd walk around the streets of Seattle at night, and we weren't supposed to fight, but you know how things go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
One of the things I shared with Eduardo is I grew up in what we call in the U.S. as you would know, barrios. Barrios are low income communities that
yeah.
are in survival mode. It's something that my parents could only afford when they moved from Mexico to East San Jose, which is in the Bay Area, and the
Mm-hmm.
barrio, formed into various gangs that were all within, you know, a radius of where I lived, where I grew up. So I totally understand that, you know, it's not like the kids that I grew up with wanted to go into violence or become violent.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've seen are the kids that I grew up with that either A came from single parent homes or latchkey kids that had parents that were never around, that were always doing their own thing. And unfortunately, some of my childhood friends, by the time I was in middle school, ended up in juvenile hall, and then transitioning. I say transitioning into correctional facilities. That I say today we have to look at alternatives in helping the youth in barrios and across America, or in Black communities, ghettos, or in the Appalachia areas in the south of the United States that are overlooked. Because
Mm-hmm.
when survival mode kicks in, it's really the person you know really striving for help and asking for help. And I always say that the key is mentorship. Mentorship really helps a youth out. And what you said about your two friends that lost their dad to AIDS, I'm so sorry to hear that. I know my best friend, who I grew up with, he he lost his battle to AIDS when he was young, when he was in his 20s. And it was only because the neighborhood I grew up in, his environment, that he grew up in a household exposed to the prostitution in the San Jose area. Uh, Literally, the pimp of San Jose lived on our block, and that exposure in life um, really solicited him in his 20s to have encounters with men and women. And I think one of the things that we have to look at in terms of environment is education. I say education and psychoeducational um, tools. And what I mean by that is, I saw a post by Eduardo that the number one thing that's being overlooked in the US is mental health. And mental health is the key for anybody's success. And I think that we have to stop with the stigma. We have to stop with you know, the the perception, because all of us, with any household across the US, 340 million folks, every person in a household has someone that has mental health. There's a DSM-5 now. It's a diagnostic manual that has over thousands of diagnoses, right? And so everyone has something, and I think it's time, as tiempo, to really look at our mental health and our state of
Yeah.
well-being. And that's why it's important, like in every school setting or every neighborhood, we need to have wellness centers and educating our community.
Yeah, yeah, man. I love that one. That is what like I said on the last show. We said that the only mental illness in the world is hate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Hate.
that's
That's the
deep.
only mental illness, right? That I recognize. And I had all the labels when I did the burnout. Like
Yeah.
I only wanted one label. That was like human. Like I'm a human.
Mm-hmm.
I will show you something regarding what he has said, like growing up in the street for me was like I was 15 years old, and my parents were very academical. So they did this academical study that if we live with Swedes, we will integrate. But they didn't calculate how that would affect me, being the only black kid. Anyways, I managed to befriend the Swedes. And when I was 15, we were sitting together, listening actually to Body Count and Public Enemy. We listened to that was like our dope. I can do body count. I can do like Public Enemy all day long. I also actually trained to rap today to do for you, Frank. Don't believe the hype. I will do it. Yes, give me one more month. I will do it. Anyway, so we were listening to that, and then they say, Eduardo, we like you, but the rest can go home. And then I realized that they were doing these things, right? The writings on the wall. What happened there? Frank had to go.
Oh, we might have lost him.
No, man. I think his daughter is in a wheelchair. She has. Yeah,
Oh,
he's back, man.
Thank you. Yeah. My daughter, it was her machine. Yeah, she has cerebral palsy. So I have a big heart, for one of the things that Eduardo is mentioning about body count. I think he was talking about iced tea, right?
yeah.
So, one of the things that I've learned in life is I used to teach this class on in mental health, and so it was interesting where there was people that would walk in late, and when they would walk in late, they would say, "Oh my God, Mr. Carbajal, I'm so sorry, I'm late." And I said, "No, you're here. I completely understand what happens in life, and what happens in life is we have a crisis that happens. Uh, we have things that are family matters that happen, and so with that, one of the folks was curious and said, "You're so understanding. How is that?" I said, "I have three daughters, and I have a daughter who's disabled, and I completely have learned about life that you never a pass judgment, make judgment, or pressure someone where they feel uncomfortable around you." And so that's the key to human life is authenticity.
Man, we should have you. Oh my God, we need to repeat. We need to send you a cut of the recording because you just nailed everything we said the last time about judging. Like you say, you never know what that person is going through. So these guys, 15 years old, listening to Public Enemy and Body Count, they said,
Yeah.
Eduardo, we like you, but the rest can go home. So then I realized maybe they were writing this blackhead go home on the walls. Like there were no other Swedes there, they were them and some
Could
others, right?
could I
So
ask
what
you,
I,
who were they
yeah,
calling a blackhead?
us, any immigrant with a dark
Oh,
color of
so
skin.
so okay, yeah. So that's
It was like
interesting.
it was like the N word, but
Yeah, yeah. It's
their
yeah.
version, right?
It's like the N word, or it's like the W word here in the United States. The W against
Yeah,
Mexicans, and we could understand what the W word is, and it ends with back, and it's not something that is a really
yeah.
pleasurable word. And when I love what you said, the Eduardo, and giving that example, because when I was in elementary school and I heard that word, it really stings, because what you think about is you think about your parents. You don't really think about yourself. You think about, shoot, man, my parents made all the sacrifices. They're the ones that are the heroes. And here they are. They're talking, you get really upset because you're like, they're talking about my parents. They're not talking about me necessarily,
Yeah.
because it's targeted towards you. But you know where it stems? It goes back to your parents. And that is like what really gets us upset.
That is what freaked me out because
Yeah.
imagine it's not like every day I go back and forth to school, I will see a Nazi graffiti and a swastika on the wall. It says "Blackhead go home." Even from my childhood, I see the swastikas, and in the beginning it was so common that I thought it was part of the landscape. I thought like maybe it's some Swedish thing. I didn't even know what it was. So what I did is that I
Mm-hmm.
said to them, you know what? Like mentally, I didn't say it straight out. I just mentally, in 1 month, I have removed them in my life and I have hit in the streets to the city where I find alignment with the other. We call us the outcasted one. I will show you the picture now because a friend of mine, that we were the gang of the unwanted ones.
Yeah, look at Eduardo is, let me guess.
Wow.
They're the one to the right, wearing the
Yeah,
you're wearing the blue jacket, right,
yeah,
Eduardo?
yeah, yeah. That blue gang jacket.
Look at that. You still look the same, man. You haven't aged.
Yeah, but I look more angry. I don't look that angry anymore.
Yeah.
It
That's
says,
Wow.
it says like this. It says in Swedish, "What should we do?"
Mm.
There is no like youth centers open. Like, what
right.
should we do, right?
Yeah.
So, what
Mm.
we did is that we all went to the big city and we roamed the streets and we met each other, right? And we felt we found brotherhood. Like I was seeking for a family because my mother was mostly ill, started to drink, and my father left us for his political fight in Chile. So I didn't have a role model. The only role model I had was my books, and then
Mm.
read Malcolm X, and then Public Enemy. That gave me pride in being a human, like just being me. That doesn't matter what color I have. I just wanted to be accepted, right? And
Yeah.
everybody you see on this picture, many of them become really successful people in life, I can tell you. But back then, nobody wanted us. Like everybody hated us, the police, everybody. Like And this, like, we were not gangs like in USA, but of course we were influenced by like NWA and stuff like that. But that was only attitude. Back in the days, we didn't have guns and knives. Like, you did it like a man. Okay, you wanna fight? Let's fight, right? So these three skinheads came. They see
Mm.
one of us. They start to rush us, and then they realized, oh my God, there's like 20 more bikes, and then they started to run. But we never like did the same that they did to us. We didn't beat them in 20. We give them a chance, man to man, because we all knew how to fight. And not only that, we knew how to take a beating, like a big beating, right? I will not cry anymore. Like, would you get used to, having your nose broken? Like, I know every sentence of the feeling. Your eye starts to tear, the blood starts coming down your like throat, inside, outside, and you start to feel dizzy. Now, if you panic in that stage, what will happen is that you will end up in the hospital. So you couldn't panic. You need to like get yourself together. You have been before. Now you need to do something about it. Either you take the threat down or you need to run. Like, you can't stay here, right? Because we're like 16, 17 years old. We're talking about like 22-year-old, like Nazi skinhead, 180 long with their Dr. Martens. That is like a steel heated shoe, right? They
Mm.
hit you with in your head like 10 times, you're gone. Like, you don't come back from that, right? So the thing is that we had each other, and that camaraderie that we had is still today alive, and that is what I love so much, because we didn't have any evil intention. We weren't like having guns. That didn't existed back in those days, but we had each other. That is the family that I found, because nobody else wanted me. And that is what I loved about ha- this period. That I'm proud of is that we had loyalty, something that in many companies you don't have. You have company politics, you don't have loyalty. Like, nobody stabbed me in the back. Like, if I didn't have food, somebody gave me food. Like, we stood up for each other and we protected each other. And the best thing we knew was like party hard, and then we went on fishing all night long, every day. Like, so I have so many beautiful memories from like
Mm.
the guys, right? Like, on the right, on the top, on the one doing the thing like that beside me, really big restaurant entrepreneur in Sweden. One of the boxers here, he's like the president of the Swedish Boxing Association, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
So don't judge. You never know, like, what is the reason that a person is on the streets looking like I don't know, like, for you maybe they look like a hooligan or like a gangster. For me, what I see is a lost youth, a lost child, right? With
You
a,
know,
like you said, Frank, maybe an upset parent, or something
No,
is behind it. You're not born evil. Nobody's born evil, my friend.
no, that's
Eduard,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say yesterday, this my neighbor had a friend over, and he went and rescued his daughter as I was walking my dog, who's in my lap, who is obviously not a threat, also, and and he says, "Get back here! There's a homeless guy over there in the bushes," and it's just I'm just by my house, and the perception is so
Who was he talking about?
me.
Oh no, that's crazy, man.
And I was
Gee,
walking this little dog and just minding my business. That's
gee.
all. I had
You,
a good laugh about it, but you think
you,
about the danger he's passing on to his kid. That's crazy.
well,
That's not good.
yeah, D. You know that's so interesting. You say about perception. I went to I was one of the partners at this. It was called the Silicon Valley Latinx Business Awards. That was last
Mm,
week, and
awesome.
SDM was my business. And one of my dear friends, his name's John, and John is a big time venture capitalist. He's made his portfolio nice. Nice portfolio. And interestingly enough, it was ironic because the waiter, he felt like he was I guess superior to my friend because the waiter was white And the waiter goes to my friend John. He's like, "Hey, amigo." He says, "Amigo, do you want tea or water, amigo?" And I'm looking and I was like, "Oh no, he's talking to John." And I always share with my daughters that the older like Eduardo and I get, the more Latino we're gonna look because
Mm,
it's just natural within our DNA. You know,
sure.
pigmentation, everything. It's just the way it is as a Latino. You know that, Eduardo. And so John is like 20 years older than us. And the perception of this waiter, I, and, John took the high road. He's like, uh, una agua, por favor. And so he responded to him in Spanish, but I knew that the perception was like, that superiority, um,
Yeah.
like okay, amigo. It was derogatory in the sense that how his approach was, and so
Yeah.
people who perceive their perception is really based on judgment, right? And so the person that you mentioned yesterday, that's something that people have to take time. I mean, for example, uh, 2 years ago, before we had this California drought, and that was about 5 years ago, I was mowing the lawn and this guy walks by and he's like, "Hey, how much do you charge for landscaping?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but if you find someone, let me know."
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, and right now I'm wearing a
It's
Pendleton. I'm wearing a Pendleton, so I should walk around and see what someone says, right?
wow.
Frank, Frank, man, tell us like you when you grew up in LA, like you saw all that, right? You like you saw the rise of hip hop, like use kind of revolution
Right,
with that
right,
type of music, right? And like, what was like your experience? You could say that
right.
you had that you can remember that like made an impact in you, like in something maybe that you see or something that you still remember today, that happened. I will tell you my incident after.
Well, I mean,
Mm,
I grew up in the Bay Area, but I did go every summer to East LA, and I also went to a area known as Watts in Compton, and I had cousins who lived in Compton. And in Compton, there's railroad tracks that separate uh, Latinos, the Mexicans, and the blacks. And so I learned really how to be a better popper and dancer when I would battle against the black kids on the other side of the tracks because I wanted to impress my cousins' friends, right?
mm-hmm.
And so the culture, what some folks call subculture, is something beneath, but I don't see it as beneath. When I say subculture, I think of culture. I I don't want to think of it as subculture. I want to think of it as cultural revolution and evolution. Things that we look at, for example, of music, is all sampled today. So when we think of music of the early '80s, for example, with hip hop and we think of the pioneers like the Sugar Hill Gang and Curtis Blow, these folks really are the folks that came before Chuck D and Public Enemy. And they were the pioneers. And Run DMC, pioneers that really, as you were talking about spinning the wheels and of steel, are the ones that had not only the ear, but the vision to make sure that music was going to be evolutionary. And so today, gosh, in 2022, a couple of weeks ago, they had the Grammys. I cannot tell you who won or who lost because, our music, we were very fortunate to have been in an era in the 80s and 90s that really set the tone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a question to the musician, I think.
The musician, yes, he'll answer.
What's the question, Frank? I missed that.
The question is that how, he was talking about hip hop and how it
Yeah.
really changed over time. What do you think about music from the 80s to today in 2022, where the music of awards that were based out of the Grammys, we hardly don't know because the music that was really transformational was in the early 80s and 90s. What do you see of today and reflecting back on
Oh, certainly. Sorry, I missed that. That it was a question. I was certainly on board with my favorites. Run DMC was probably my first favorite, and going backwards to Motown actually is what
Oh yeah, yeah,
so Motown and funk. Um, my mom was really interested in that, and so that's when I create any kind of hip hop or anything. That's really where I go. But I also go to world music, or not. That's not really a correct term anymore. But I go around the world and I ask people like you or Eduardo or friends in other countries, what is your favorite song from growing up, or what was your natural thing growing up? That's what's interesting to me. And so if you're asking me about what do I think about what's going on now, it's definitely an electronic age. It's much easier to enter. The music can be not as interesting, I think. There's certainly still tons of talent out there, and my favorite thing though is the diversity. That now anything goes, and there's all these different genres popping up, and the younger 20, 30-year olds are embracing that, which, going back to the 80s, I mean, do you remember my parents did not like rap? They were like, oh, that's, I don't know, what are you going to hell or something? I can't remember.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? It just was like, and then I went from really loving rap, and the only rock I listened to was Dead Kennedys and Suicidal Tendencies and Black Flag, which was very political and fit right in with Chuck D and all that other stuff. So all of that was to me very interesting. Nowadays, I don't find the depth. For me, it's harder for me to love the music as much. So I don't follow the Grammys at all. I
yeah,
don't follow what's mainstream. I'm actually looking for the odd man out on YouTube, and then I message them and I go, "Where did you come from?" And then I get in conversations like this, you
yeah,
know. And
yeah,
that's what I'm looking forward to, is bringing some of these oddballs on, because I'm an oddball, and it's just like getting to know what's coming from younger people or new musicians, because music is evolving, right? And it can be interesting depending on how you look at it. But the mainstream music to me has become less and less interesting as the electronic age has made it easier. Although, sampling is easy, there's still an art to it, but a kid can do it in high school, without buying any kind of gear. So
yeah.
you couldn't do that in the 80s. The sampler, like I have a beat machine over here I bought for $120. That was $800 in 1987. So you can imagine none of us could have bought that then. And
Yeah.
so we were making hip hop we were recording on empty file cabinets to get, and like that's how we made beats, and we recorded any sound we could in any way we could, and that's hip
Okay,
hop.
yeah, but I
Mm-hmm.
think like the right thing would be now to for Frank to request a song, Pink Floyd. What do you want to hear, Frank? Let's Zero do it.
Oh man, go easy on me, Frank.
Like a song he's
He
gonna
will.
sing
To
or
to
play.
play, I'm not
He's
going to
gonna play
sing
for you.
anything.
He's gonna play guitar.
Oh,
Give us
okay.
something you like on guitar, like Sabbath, Pink Floyd. What do you like?
Let's see here. Well, I used to listen to Ronnie James Dio and Van Halen, and yeah, what about?
It's not my genre. Sorry. I'm just learning rock music, to be honest with you,
So
as
okay,
I get
so
older. But
yeah.
I love, yeah, I love all the classics.
So what do you enjoy? I mean, playing.
I play all kinds of music.
So do you?
R&B, like that Motown stuff, some of that,
Free
you
solo,
know,
free solo. Yes, free
free
solo.
solo.
Yeah. Come
Yeah.
on, forward.
So what about?
Frank, you're singing, right? If I play.
Well, yeah, yeah. No, Eduardo's singing. Eduardo's a good singer.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
do.
Just yeah, surprise us maybe.
Just play, man. Let's do something amazing. Uh,
Frank, while I'm looking for a pick, so because we just met, you know, going back to Eduardo's question too, and getting to know each other, most people would assume I'm just some white guy because that's what I look like. But actually, my mom is native Canadian Indian, and my I'm moving my family back to our reservation to live there full time soon. And my older brother and sister are both half black, and so I grew up not even really knowing there was this difference for a minute, until a kid at daycare when I was about 8, right as my parents separated, said, "Oh, I heard your brother is an N word," and I'd never heard that word,
Oh
and then
man,
and then his mom came over and smacked him across the mouth.
yeah.
And then I was like, I went to his younger brother. I was like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "I'm not saying that." And then I looked over to him and I said, "I don't even know. What did you say?" And he goes, "Your brother's an N word." And then I punched him in the mouth. I was 8.
Well, yeah, yeah. No,
So that was my first time realizing that that was unacceptable, but I still didn't understand the gravity
yeah,
of a term.
yeah.
And I didn't understand probably until the last 5 years the kind of racism my mother dealt with as a growing up in a native, an unwelcoming culture to the natives in Canada.
Oh yeah, I could imagine like Canada. They have the perception that everything's okay, but I always say when folks perceive that things are okay, they're really not okay all of the time. They're just really hiding from transparency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how we've all dealt with it in our corners in different ways, and
Yeah, I
our
you know
our
I
families are different.
and I
Everything's
and
different
I
about
and I
us.
hear what you're saying. Eduardo knows me well enough to I call people out on stuff, and I remember growing up with this kid who I have three daughters, and one's very fair skinned and she has green eyes. So when I take her to the doctor's appointment, she's my daughter in the wheelchair. They'll look at me and they'll look at her. And one
Hmm.
time, someone asked if I was her adopted parent, and I said, "Oh no, no." But the perception is something that we have to advocate and step up, to and let that person know
Oh yeah.
because yeah, because of the diversity and the complexity of who we are, right? And I remember one kid growing up, he would always let others not only perceive but create his own identity. They would say, "Oh, you're Portuguese," and he would go with it, and he was just as
Mm.
Mexican as me. And until one time, my friend says, "Hey, so and so always says he's Portuguese. He comes from Portuguese blood." And I said, "Oh well, let me just wait. When we all get together, I'll call him out." And I did. And I said,
Mm.
"You should be proud of your roots." I said, "Your parents are from Mexico, and
Mm.
I said, I
Yeah.
love our Portuguese brothers and sisters, but be proud of who you are." And I'm so glad you mentioned your mom and your dad's side of your roots. We got to be proud of our roots.
Yeah, it all makes us the quilt we are, right?
That's right. That's right.
What's your favorite thing about the area you live in now and how it's changed since the 80s?
Uh, Good question. I would say diversity, but when I say diversity, I'm speaking of seeing folks that where I live, folks from India, folks from South Korea, and we're all human, and we all are folks who need to understand one another's culture. So that's what I love about the evolution of it, of where I live.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
I
yeah,
would.
go ahead. Just do a song, one of your favorites.
I didn't really prepare, so I'll
I
just
know, no.
play around. And
And so next time, yeah, Eduardo's gonna have to rap for us.
Eduardo.
I will
I
do it
can't wait to
today.
hear that.
No, it's okay, Eduardo. You
No,
can.
no,
You
no.
can
I want. I want to. After his song, we will talk some more, and I will do that because I trained today. It sounded horrible, but I will still rap.
Okay.
This is a song I'm writing with Dorothy O'J. She wrote the lyrics to it. We got to invite her on so she can sing it. Frank, I just had surgery like 3 months ago.
Oh man.
And
What?
on my shoulder and my bicep tendon, and the other night when Eduardo did our first live with me, that's the first time I'd played guitar through a whole song, really, and it was like, I don't even know, an hour, and I was
Yeah, we
so
would
in the
never know.
moment. I just, oh man, I made some mistakes as we went, but it didn't matter. I was I just enjoyed it, and so more to come, and then I'll play some of my beats for you guys too. You can pop and lock or do.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Just.
That'd be amazing. My brother was really good. I never could do it. I can't dance worth anything. Can you break dance, Eduardo?
I could before I had this big stomach.
Yeah, that doesn't help. I
Do
can't.
do the centipede, Eduardo. Like that.
Well,
That's nice. That sounds nice.
Thank you. There's so many more parts of this song, and by the time we get the show really cooking, I want to do some looping, so where I can play a little few chords, and then over the top, I can play some more little licks and kind of jazz it up. Maybe switch to a different guitar, that kind of thing. That'd be fun.
So how long have you been playing? When did you get into, the guitar?
I started playing when I was 14.
That's awesome. That's the age, right?
Well, I really loved it, and I should post my first concert. I'll do that on my LinkedIn page soon. When I was a kid, and my voice cracks, and I'm singing Pink Floyd, "Wish You Were Here," and I forgot the words. It was crazy, but it was so fun. And then the other band I played in was more punk rock style, and I was singing, and those were songs I wrote myself, and so those were easy to not forget the lyrics.
Right.
I think that's the trick. But I love just rocking out, and getting creative. I stopped doing that though at 18 when I went in the military.
Yeah. So were you in the Marines?
I was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So was
Oh,
my wife, yeah.
Oh, that's great. I know a big camaraderie and network of folks that what's the saying of a Marine?
Semper Fi.
Yes, Semper Fi. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always faithful. Yeah.
Always faithful. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Semper Gumby, which
Well,
we would say as Marines, which is, if you remember the cartoon from the 70s
yeah,
and
of
80s.
course. Yes.
And
yes.
that's always flexible, and that's what my wife and I always joke about. When your higher ups would always tell you Semper Gumby, like,
yeah.
when you didn't hear the news you wanted to hear.
That's
So-
right. That's right. That is right.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say I had mentioned my daughter a few minutes ago. So,
Yeah.
Eduardo, I know you'll be able to carry on from here. I have another 5 minutes before I have to give my daughter her meds, but I just
Awesome.
want to say, we need to connect on LinkedIn and I know you mentioned Cardona. I'm
Hmm.
connected with him on LinkedIn as well as his wife. His wife's a great speaker as well.
Oh, really? I haven't
Yeah,
heard her. Awesome.
yeah.
I'll look her up.
She's really inspirational. I aren't they based out of Florida or somewhere around there?
Virginia
Virginia.
or
Okay.
Washington D.C. I think
Right around.
Virginia.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
definitely. They're a cool
All right.
family,
Just
tight
want
knit
to say
family.
something here is that Frank, we have we talk about the show, and I think that what we should do is actually more like focus on the slogan of Silicon Valley Leadership Summit, like 365, right? But what we could do here, like with the music and the poet, we could add, like, for example, uh, like, I don't know, I need to find the word, like the music, the poet, and the brain. I would have something like that, right? Like, to do something more like, we can talk about everything, right? The, the first call that crushed our heart, the first beating we got. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
want to create something like,
Right.
where you can add punk poetry, like something totally different, and it's not like Latinx, it's like human, it's only like all colors go, like there's like no thing that like uh, everything goes, right?
Yeah, there's a person that needs to be on the show. He's running for California governor, and he's a poet laureate here,
Oh, wow.
and super influential in terms of poetry.
Hmm.
He was the mentor to Amanda Gorman, who did the inaugurational poetry for President Biden, and he's a person in my network who is running for governor. And of course, as you guys know, running in politics, you have to have uh, heavy donors. He won't make governor, but I bet you anything, he's amplifying more voices through his running for governor because as a poet, you guys, I say you guys because Dee and Eduardo, poet poetry is really about life experience, and it really is about digging deep into what you have within your heart to just put it out there. And so I admire poets. It's
Yeah.
tough. It is tough. I always wanted to write poetry. I'm an author, but of just books that are of
Mm.
leadership. But poetry is much more difficult because, a poet really has to expose who they really are. And I think there's a lot of people who are phony, right? They're out there and they have a guard up and they have a mask on. And a poet is really taking that shield off and letting others know this is who I am and this is who you are as well.
Eduardo was the first one that I saw that I thought, wow, he's using poetry for something. And it was kind of before I knew him, right? I'm watching
Yeah.
his posts and things. And as I got to know him in the leadership group, I was really seeing like he was getting somewhere with it. It was like not only was he leaving a legacy, but he was um, sort of prophesying to himself and to who he wanted to be in some of these and speaking to his past and to his future. It was like, and it just, it really made my creative gene
Yeah.
go, man, like I want to be next to these people, but that I can't do that. And as I got invited to do a workshop to just play guitar as a backing, like when they do their breaks or when people are writing, and Dorothy in that workshop said, well, why don't you try and write something? And that was the first time because of the pressure, I was like able to write. I think it's like when we had the show the last one, it was like the little bit of pressure. I was able to play for an hour, but if I'm just sitting by myself, I can't. I was having a struggle.
Yeah. No,
and
I hear,
it was like,
yeah,
whoa, it was amazing, you know.
yeah. No, I hear exactly what you're saying. I think pressure is dealt with when someone doesn't necessarily put you on the spot, but it has to be the right timing and everything that
Yeah.
is a reflection of who you are as a person. I remember years ago, I was in a room filled with tons of people, and a friend of mine points out to others that I was the funniest guy that had the funniest jokes that he's ever met, and he put me on the spot.
Mm.
And so someone's like, Frank's not that funny. And so, it really has to be your own calling, your own timing of what you do. I know,
Yeah.
I know that music is the same way, right? I mean, it's like you said earlier, Eduardo, will have you sing a song while he's playing the guitar for the next one, because I think it's what you said. It's really harmony that comes together when we think about things. I know for me personally, I um, I like to do public speaking, but when I'm pressured to do a speech for a group that I'm not really enthusiastic about,
Mm.
it doesn't come out as authentic. That's why when I hear like politicians speak, for example, I'm like, that's just not authentic. It really is, you know, uh, for donors or for folks, just to 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 applaud to a message that really isn't authentic.
Yeah.
I have to say here about poetry is that poetry is the only way I could express the feelings I don't dare to post about. And I wanted to tell
Mm.
them, but I couldn't do it until I found poetry. And I was a poetry, like I liked poetry before, but I never found good poetry and start looking at like Pablo Neruda. I started to look like poetry written from the heart, without holding back. I would say with blood, smoke, stains, sweat.
Yep.
That is for me poetry, not like the sun is beautiful today. That is not poetry. So for
That's
me,
right.
poetry is like, do you want me to do a poem for you that I like, Frank? That maybe I would say that this is written for you, my friend. Uh, Before you go, it will go very quickly. One
Yeah,
second.
yeah. Yeah, why don't you say the poem, and I'll end up uh, chiming out here, and then D, I'm so glad we need to connect after on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn. Okay, go
That'd be
for it,
amazing.
Eduardo.
It's going to be stand up again. It is called because I have fallen down so many times that I usually when I lecture I say like like a cat. I'm on like the third cat life or something like. Let me see here. Chrome tab. Okay, this one is called stand up again. Okay. I don't know what it means to give up anymore. If the devil himself did not manage to kill my hope, what exactly is there for me to lose anymore? That they will laugh at my failure? That others will talk? That I fell once again what a loser I am? That I'm a clown? I'm not a true man? I don't know what it means to give up anymore. All I know is to stand up again when I fall. That's it. Oh,
Wow, that's
Mm.
profound. That is profound. Hey, is that a photo of you, Eduardo?
yeah, man. I will scroll. 1 second. I will scroll.
You had long hair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The lost of the Mohicans.
Oh, yeah, no, that's stand up again. That's something you're publishing, right? You're publishing all your poems.
Man, I have written like 200. I have like one child book, one. I have written more than 2,500 pages without publishing anything. Do I have
Mm.
books? Yeah, I packaged actually 3 books now, but
Yeah.
I don't publish. I don't know why. I don't
No,
publish.
these are great poems for kids that are in high school and college that you know go in, well, pre COVID, go in, leave, and then need to identify with something that is within them to make them feel okay, right? So I say you have great poems, and you asked me the other day to select one that I like. I like all of them. so
I
so
don't know
let
if
me,
I would. I said to Tiro that if we do it, we need to do like a community thing. Like, if you guys don't contribute with a poem, and I will help you to write the poems because
yeah.
my first poem, like I told Tiro, is like it would have been rejected at Walmart. They're like, this doesn't pass the quality test. Like, come on, you understand? It was not good. I had to just train, and then when I got it, it just came and it came and it came. It didn't stop. Like, I wrote and
Uh,
wrote and wrote.
it
So
just flows. It just
I
flows.
will invite you. I will invite Dorothy to a poetry session, like invited only, and we will come out with the poems from that session. I will tell you, everybody.
Sounds good. Well, Dero and Eduardo, I gotta get running, but this was fun. Thank you
So
guys.